On this week's episode of the Pretty Happy Podcast, we sit down with the co-founder of Rett University, Susan Norwell, where we learn about some great things coming from RettU this year.
But first, we talk about great news regarding Trofinetide, or as we now know it, Daybue.
All that and much more on today's episode. Today is Monday, April 3rd. Let's start the show. Welcome to the Pretty Happy Podcast. My name is Sam.
And my name is Sarah, and we're the parents of Zoe, a child with Rett syndrome.
We are back after taking a week off, but we are so excited to share so much new stuff with you today. I don't think we should take any more time dilly-dallying.
No, we should not.
And just chatting about, because there is so much that we need to discuss today. Sarah, how...
Of Rett's, of individuals with Rett syndrome. They decided that they needed to do a community webinar where individuals could submit questions and they would sit down and answer them. They would go through, what Trofinetide is and what Acadia had to offer alongside of Trofinetide. So, number one, the first thing that they went over in this webinar was the results from the trials. So they kind of went through and explained what those results looked like. And basically, to break it down for you guys, there was two different evaluations. One evaluation was given to parents or caregivers. The other evaluation was given to the doctors themselves. And they were two completely different evaluations, but still similar. Now, the parents went through their evaluation and they wrote down, I believe they wrote down 0 to 3. 0 being not true and 3 being true. So they were given they were given statements about 45 symptoms of Rett syndrome. And they would mark whether that symptom was true for their individual or not true, or, neutral. And those included their mood, breathing, eye gaze, nighttime behaviors, repetitive behaviors, vocalizations, hand movements, and facial expressions, and many, many more, because there were 45 symptoms that they were looking at to see if Trofinetide affected them or not. Overall, Trofinetide, from the beginning to the end, the difference was on average a negative 4.9. So essentially, from being true to not true, so from having symptoms to not having symptoms, they on average went down 5 points almost. Which is a big improvement, I feel. Especially if there's only 0, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, that's definitely a large improvement compared to what it was. And even though some of it, because I've heard some people say that it was just incremental improvements. And yes, I think you'd may be able to say that because this is such a new drug, that in some instances, those incremental improvements could have been other factors. The fact that these improvements happened across the board with those who were taking the actual drug versus those taking the placebo, that means a lot.
They did compare it. They had two groups, one taking the medication, one not taking the medication. And then this was a 12-week period. That's it. For this final trial was a 12-week period. And then afterwards, individuals who wanted to stay on could stay on for 40 weeks. And then they continued to monitor. But these evaluations were given several times during that 12-week period. So potentially, it was incremental just for that 12-week. But if you were on it for longer, you potentially could see that those incremental things build into bigger things.
Yeah. And as I've been sifting through the many posts and comments on various social media sites about the approval for Trofinetide, also known as Daybue, there's been, it's interesting to see so much hesitancy, especially considering the fact that so many people are so eager about a cure. We don't have a cure right now. What we have is a therapeutic that can assist. And it's funny to see some people specifically point out that those incremental improvements for them is not enough to justify taking the drug. Now, there may be other factors involved, and that's fine. I can't judge somebody's situation. I can't judge it effectively based off of a single social media post.
Yeah.
But to simply say, well, the results were only slightly positive. Okay, but that's better than nothing.
Yeah, I know.
And we literally have nothing else. There is nothing else. We have plenty of drugs to be able to take care of a headache. We're headed into allergy season here in the US, and spring is kicking my butt. And I have plenty of options of things to take.
Yep.
And you and I actually had this conversation yesterday about how there are certain medications that for me just do not work.
Yep.
They just don't work. And that's fine. And we're going to see that with Trofinetide. It's not going to work for some people, and for others it is going to be. They are going to have adverse reactions. But that's pharmaceuticals.
In general, yeah.
Yeah. I shared with Sarah that I have taken an opioid once, and I can't remember which surgery it was after. I've had multiple surgeries throughout my life, but I took it once. I was a teenager, and I was so sick to my stomach. I cannot take any sort of medication for pain relief if it's an opioid based. I can do ibuprofen. Tylenol does little to nothing. Morphine is my favorite. But that's not the case for everybody.
No.
And so, an incremental improvement across the board could mean drastic improvements for others.
Yeah.
It could mean negative symptoms for others. You just don't know. And the great thing is about this is if you take it and it doesn't work, or maybe it cuts the problems, you go off of it.
Yep. It's only effective as long as you continue to take it.
Exactly. So it is just like a Claritin or an ibuprofen or whatever it is. So long as the medication is in their system, it will be impactful. This is not a permanent change.
No.
The drug itself is not intended to create a permanent change.
No, it is not. Number 2. They presented a resource, we're going to call it a resource, called Acadia Connect. So this resource gives families access to nurse care coordinators and family access managers. Do you know what that means?
I'm going to guess that the intention is to help families and caregivers and guardians and so on and so forth figure out how to navigate getting access to Trofinetide.
Yes.
Yeah, because, I don't think I've ever been in a position where I personally, or anybody that I know personally, has been taking a drug so early in its lifetime. So, yeah.
So, essentially, these connections, the Acadia Connect, the nurse care coordinators, and the family access managers, their job is to help everyone get access to the medication. So they are going to help with insurance and cost. They're going to help with filling your prescription, and they are going to provide support and education. And they will actually, so once you talk to your doctor and say you want to get on the medication, if you go to the Daybue.com, I believe, website, they have information where you can sign up to get a nurse care coordinator or a family access manager, and they will help you with your insurance. So they'll actually take a look at your insurance for you. They'll find out if you need pre-approvals. They'll help you get all of that submitted. They're going to help you get the medication. If you don't have insurance, they have support plans and whatnot to be able to help with that. They want you to be able to get the medication if that is what you're wanting, which I thought was awesome, because most medications, they don't have somebody that's like, oh yeah, you need a pre-approval for this. We're going to help you get that so that you can get your medication. Most people are just like, here's your prescription, figure it out.
Yeah. Well, and it being so new, and at least here in the United States, it is going to be a heavily controlled substance.
Yeah.
It makes sense. Do you know if they have made any sort of recommendations about like using a compound pharmacy versus just kind of a compounding pharmacy versus a standard pharmacy?
So that was actually going to be my number 3. So we'll jump into number 3. Number 3 was that this medication is going to be made at specialty pharmacies. Now, what that means is that the medication will be shipped to you. So you're not going to go to the pharmacy and say you need more. You will just you'll work with Acadia Connect, and they will help you make sure that you're getting your deliveries on time, you're getting your medication. But it is from a specialty pharmacy. So you're not going to just go to your local pharmacy and be like, hey, I need Daybue.
Gotcha. That does make sense. And especially considering the number of people that are going to be eligible to be able to use it.
Right, compared to how many people need medication in general.
Yeah, exactly. This does make more sense to have it shipped versus having it stocked. Obviously, there are some downsides to that, but let's be honest, folks, there are downsides to having stuff within brick and mortar stores.
It's true. Yep.
So I think this is a fine option.
Yeah. Yep. So they did a great job. I thought that they did a great job answering questions, and a lot of the questions that were coming in were questions that they couldn't answer. They were specific to the Rett individual, and they were questions that needed to be discussed with that individual's doctor, because they obviously, on this panel, they're not going to give out medical advice. They can give you the facts about Daybue, not, tell you what exactly you need to do or whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. I imagine there were conversations about, my child has a G-tube and, struggling with weight, and there's a potential with Daybue for a side effect of diarrhea. How does that impact and all that stuff? That's not their job. Their job is to deliver a safe and effective drug, which they have done. They have shared the information with healthcare providers about the side effects, the pros, the cons, everything about it. And then it's up to you to have a discussion with either your primary care, your neurologist, your Rett care personnel, whoever it is, and decide, and preferably alongside your individual who has Rett, is this something you want to give a try on?
And they did suggest, when they were talking about side effects, they did suggest things that you could talk to your doctor about, like getting on an antidiuretic or getting off laxatives before starting, because it could cause diarrhea. But in the end, they kept saying, you just need to talk to your loved one's doctor, because they are going to be able to give you the best advice, not the panel that was, in this webinar. But I think they did a great job overall, and they answered a lot of questions. And, at this point, it's just a waiting game to see when or what happens once people get on the medication. So
yeah, it's going to take time. Like we were mentioning before, it appears like there's a real possibility that if there's positive effects of trofinetide within a 12-week trial period, that if you continue to stay on it, that it could do even better and better and better and better over time. But for example, if I go off of, I usually use Zyrtec as my allergy medication. If I go off of it for like 2 or 3 days, my allergies are just horrible, and it takes a couple more days
to build back up.
Yeah, to build back up, to have that medication in my system and to help fight off the horrible side effects of allergies. So, I mean, it's definitely possible that that's the case. But as a reminder, this is not a cure. This is not something that's going to stay in the system forever. And so if it doesn't work, okay, it doesn't work, and you go back to what you were doing before and you handle it that way until we have something else.
Yep.
So the fact that we have something is better than nothing at all.
It's awesome.
Welcome back, everybody. We are very excited to have with us today Susan Norwell, who is with Rett University. We've had the wonderful pleasure to speak with Courtney Barnum, but Susan has kind of been the what would be the correct term that we viewed Susan as? She's been the pioneer.
Yes.
When it comes to Rett communication. That's the way that we viewed you, Susan. And we're very appreciative of everything that you've done. So we're very excited to talk with you about your experience when it comes to alternative methods, when it comes to communication, and just get a little bit more insight on Rett University. So Susan Norwell, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
Well, let's just get started by getting to know you. Susan, what are you all?
I think at this point at last count, I spend a lot of time with my family. I spend a lot of time being active in my church and in my community doing outreach. But my heart is for Rett syndrome. I think that God really has me on this path. It's been from a long time of the way my life has been engineered and who I've met. And I met a young lady who was 3 at the time, diagnosed with autism. And I had worked with kids with autism that couldn't talk and knew how to teach and to read. So she's, started learning. I started showing her symbols, started to teach her to communicate. By the time she was 5, she had sight words. She was doing some beginning reading. She's a little different than the boys I saw because she was really social. She would look at the phone and look at me as if to say, "Who is it?" I'm like, "I'm at your house, honey. I don't know who it is." And Marissa, she was really funny. And so I thought, well, maybe she's just a girl with autism versus a boy with autism. But at 5.5, when she had sight words, starting to read, really good, pretty good, solid symbol communication with eye pointing, she got the chicken pox. And after the chicken pox, she started wringing her hands. And I said, "Oh, this isn't autism. This is Rett syndrome." parents went to Boston. At that time, Dr. Daybue was there, and she was doing diagnosis of autism, of Rett syndrome. And sure enough, she was diagnosed with Rett clinically, and since then has had the genetic testing done. But the interesting thing is, at that point in time, everything that they were saying about Rett was that they would never get past 18 months. And so I'm there standing, raising my hand, going, wait a minute, I have this girl who's starting to read and she can communicate, and she's way beyond 18 months. And I think we are looking at this disorder the wrong way. And when I started speaking out, organizations had me want to speak at their conferences, and then one thing led to another. So now people hear me at a conference, and I go to New Zealand and see 50 girls. And then I get invited to here, and I see another 50 girls. And then people are coming to my house, and I'm seeing more girls. So at this point, and boys, at this point, I've probably seen over 500 girls. I've stopped counting at some point, and about 6 boys. And really started hammering home to people that this was not a cognitive disorder, that this is a trapped in your body disorder. This is a motor disorder that interferes with their ability to express what they know, which doesn't mean they aren't receptively understanding what they know. And the challenge for us, challenge for me in particular, has always been, how do I help them do what everybody else would be doing? How would I help them learn what everybody else is learning? That's my job. Their job is to bring what they can do to the table, and my job is to match it with the accommodations and modifications to make sure that they can get out what they know. And over the years, the girls and boys have taught me an immense amount about them, because if you just are a good observer, you can learn from them as to what can work. And then you can use that for the next kid or the next woman. So the youngest I've seen, 18 months, the oldest woman I'm working with now is 50. She got her device 2 years ago, and Mindy is quite the chatterbox. So, which I love. I love to hear her say. One day we were cooking at her adult program, and she was reaching for the food, and I said, no, it's too hot. She on her device says, I'm ready. Go. I am ready to eat. So go. So I would have to say that at this point, my mission isn't just seeing one girl. My mission is to change the lives of many girls by impacting their schools and impacting countries, which I have been blessed to be able to do. Get into a country and change how they look at AAC for people that don't use their hands. Go into someplace like New Zealand, where they never gave devices to girls with Rett syndrome. And I was fortunate enough to meet a couple that was building this conference. And the first year I talked, they were like, oh my gosh, look what these kids can do. The second year they said, what do you want? I said, I want the people who turn the key. Who decides who gets devices and who doesn't? I want them at the conference. And sure enough, they packed those people in, and I got a chance to work with them. And now girls get devices. So it's a mission. I mean, it really is. It's my life's mission to, release the prisoners from darkness. Basically, that's in Isaiah. It's this whole idea of how can you give them not just a voice, but also give them something to talk about. You can't just give somebody a communication device and say, okay, now they can communicate. You got to give them something to talk about. So they got to read. They got to be well read. They have to have content. They have to have a life so that they want to communicate. So that's what I do. And how I start, you want to hear how I started Let You?
And literally just wrote that question down.
I was going to say, that was my, how does that fit in?
So I had this dream that, a long held dream, a 5-year dream of how do I help people who can't afford to have a Susan Norwell come to their school and train their school, or a country that can't afford to have somebody put on a conference to have me flown there and teach for 5 days or whatever. How do you get around that money thing and make the education of individuals with Rett syndrome affordable and doable? And you could do it in your pajamas. You don't have to get dressed and go to a conference. So I shopped the idea around for 5 years and got really kind of every door that I pursued slammed in my face. And I then went down to Florida to meet a girl and her mom. And she ran Girl Power to Cure. And we're sitting around the table like we're sitting around right now, having dinner, just chit-chatting. And I told her, I've got this dream that I think we could have like a web-based training site. So we can train people on the things that are working, that we know are working. Let's teach the teachers. Let's get them more involved, because I always felt it's unfair for parents to have to be leading the fight for how to educate their individuals with Rett syndrome. And as a parent, you probably have felt this, that you walk into a school expecting your child to be educated, and they're like, yeah, we don't know what to do.
Oh, yeah.
And yet they maybe don't want help either. That's the two-edged sword. I don't know what to do, but no, we're not going to hire somebody to help us do it. So when I told her this, she was like, okay, fine. 6 months later, we were up and running. And now Rett University is worldwide because it's on the web. And there is, we're right now working out a deal with Germany, with their Rett Syndrome Association, to translate courses into German and train their teachers. So in a way, I've gone from this, and it's not that I'll ever give up individual treatment. I will never give up individual treatment. That's where I learn. That's where I keep pushing the girls more and boys more and more, so that I know what it is they are capable of and how to get them there. But as I get older, because I really am quite older, my birthday is on Friday. I'll be 69. So I'm almost like 70. So, and what I would like to do is I would like to influence, again, this influence of countries, like we started in Holland. When we went to Holland, their girls were in daycare. They never went to school till after the conference and the training. And then parents went, wait a minute, if these kids can do this, why aren't we fighting to have them go to school? And now they go to school. So it's a wave. It's a kind of a wave of information. It's a wave of support for parents. I just did a podcast, or not a podcast, like a webinar for grandparents. There's a grandparent group in the United States, how they can support their grandchildren. I just think there's so many untapped things that we can still do. And I just want to tap them. I want to do it as much as I can. That's all.
Yeah.
As long as I can.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we certainly agree with that. And we've shared on the podcast multiple times that, and maybe our view is tinted because we are so much involved in the community, but at least me growing up, and I'm sure, Susan, it was the same thing for you, individuals with any sort of disability, be it Rett syndrome, autism, ADHD, Downs, whatever it may be, the thought was, oh, you're not like everybody else. Great, let's institutionalize you. It's graduated now into, we're going to put you into, these daycare programs, or maybe even some day programs that do provide some educational opportunities. But now it's what we are seeing, and that's because it's our own sphere of influence. Zoe is participating the majority of the time in a general education classroom. We fought and fought and fought for it. And I had the wonderful opportunity of taking Zoe to school one day because we slept in past our alarms.
Yep.
And
She missed the bus.
Yep, missed the bus. And it happens. But I took her in, and I was able to go into the special ed classroom because they do breakfast there first. And I was able to talk with the special ed teacher, and the enthusiasm that she has for Zoe to be able to go and participate in the general ed classroom now versus when we first met her, is it 2 years now?
Yeah.
Coming up on 2 years, it is night and day. It is completely different. And I mean, I hope that our efforts are now being viewed as us trying to provide more equitable opportunities for these individuals to experience the world as the rest of us do. It's now impacting me the way that I'm working with kids in my own job. Just today, I had a little boy. He is very high functioning autism, but when he is overstimulated, he becomes very combative. And I've had the opportunity to talk with his moms about the situation. And they were like, okay, well, we're going to keep him home. And I was like, no, don't keep him home. He needs this, but let's work together on a plan, which I'm sure was a breath of fresh air for them, because Sarah and I have felt it, where we have either directly or indirectly been told, your child is too much and we don't want to put in the effort. And that's not the way this world should be.
Oh, absolutely. I remember growing up, and there was a little girl in my neighborhood named Brenda, and I said to my mom, how come she doesn't go to school? And I knew there was something different about Brenda, and I was kind of like her protector. You know, I ran school in the summer. All the kids in the neighborhood came in at school. I think I was born a teacher. You know, a really annoying teacher. Well, we did plays, we did all kinds of things. But I said, why doesn't Brenda go to school? You know, those questions were nagging me. And so I think sometimes, I think that my life has been really ordered in terms of steps, in terms of who came into my life at just the right time for me to have my eyes opened and say, okay, this kiddo may look really complicated and really complex. Those happen to be that's my bandwidth. That's what I do. But that doesn't mean they can't be taught and they cannot learn. Because when we give up on that, what we're essentially saying is they're not teachable, they're not learnable, they can't learn. I remember listening to David Copenhaver give a talk at one of the leading researchers in the U.S. on literacy, and he was showing us videos of this chimpanzee that was learning to read words, had like 50 sight words. And I'm like, okay, so basically what you're saying to me is this kid is not as smart as a chimpanzee. I think, really, are you really saying that? Because if you're saying that to me, I'm going to really have trouble here. And so I think that for me now, when I look at people with Rett syndrome or individuals with complex needs that cannot use their hands and cannot talk, I say, you know, what's the most necessary thing for them is communication. If they're going to learn to communicate and be fully communicate, they have to learn to write. And if they're going to learn to write, they have to learn to read. And if they're going to read, they have to learn to code. So here's this whole literacy bundle that goes together that is really the cornerstone of what we do at RettU. We are not a PT group. We don't claim to be physical therapists. We don't claim to be OTs. Do we know a lot about regulation? Can we give suggestions? I just sat in on a team meeting. Did I give suggestions to the PT? Sure, but I'm not a PT. Did I give suggestions to the OT? Yes, I did. These are the kinds of things that would help this child stay regulated throughout her day. They were very grateful because they've never, as they said, you know, we've never seen somebody with Rett before. I said, that does not surprise me. It's 1 in 10,000. You're very lucky. But this school that I interacted with was a learn-it-all school, and they were dedicated to inclusion. And it was a joy to work with them because they were already thinking about the things I had taught them, about how they could make accommodations to make this child be able to be in the classroom as much as possible and learn. So in my mind, if you say they cannot learn, then you're really not a teacher. I don't know what you are. You're a space holder, but you're not a teacher.
A babysitter, maybe?
Maybe a babysitter, and maybe not even a babysitter, but I really feel that our profession has to be, people have to teach with integrity, and if they don't know, they have to learn. Mm-hmm. So I don't claim to know everything about Rett because every time I meet somebody new, I learn something different. Every time I have somebody make that first a leap, and then I say, okay, now how can I get them to the next level? And I have to problem solve through that, and they help me by responding to what I'm doing, I learned something new. So when I first started with my first girl with Rett syndrome, I did not have the skill set that I have now. And I won't have this same skill set a year from now. And if I do, I should stop doing what I'm doing, and I shouldn't have it 2 years from now. And so I really think that the educational piece needs to start to come under the ownership of the school. That's what I would really like to see happen. And so they should hire consults that know how to help them become better, because if they can educate a child with Rett syndrome, they can educate anybody. They're as complex as you're going to see, right?
Yeah.
They're really smart. They're really smart. And if you can figure out how to get in there and get that smart out, man, you are a teacher. You know what I'm saying? And if you're a speech therapist and you're not just asking WH questions, and you really can build conversational skills, you're a speech therapist. WH questions are kind of boring. It's like going out to dinner with my mother. So I just, I love my mother, but it was like one WH question after another. So I think that conversations are about storytelling.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, it's really important. So anyways, so that's what I do. I am blessed to have Courtney as a partner. I'm always looking for people. I turn around and say, okay, who's coming up behind me? We need to have another me. Not another me, but another like me. You know what I'm saying? And Courtney is that kind of person. She had a sister with Rett, and she is dedicated to Rett.
She is.
And that's where I need. Yep. I need somebody Yep. And so we're always looking. I mean, we've got another person that we're trying to think about, and we're trying to build this out because the need is greater than just the two of us at this point. And so we are, trying to build, like I said, I'm trying to get into countries now. Let's train the trainers and then have the trainers go out.
Yeah, most certainly. Well, speaking of WH questions, what do you see as the biggest hurdle or the biggest struggle that a lot of schools or districts are putting up when it comes to providing those opportunities for educators to learn and grow so that way they can come back to the classroom and help these individuals with complex needs be successful?
So I think it's human nature that when you try to do something new, people go like this. They draw back. And I think that can be kind of teachers are kind of conservative people, I think. And they tend to not like change a lot. And this behavioral model came in like roaring in like a lion in the 60s, which I think was to the detriment of teachers. Because in my mind, it doesn't help anybody to come from a behavioral model. You should be coming from an emotional affective engagement model, which is totally different than a behavioral model. But the other thing is it's a finance thing, which is unfortunate. So that if you say at an IEP meeting, I need help to be able to educate this child, it's incumbent upon the district to go find that help. So I just had this conversation with this district. They said, okay, the teacher came right out and said, I'm going to need help to do this. The director of special ed said, okay, then we're going to need to contract with somebody. And Susan, we're going to have to go out to bid and bid other experts in the field in our area. And I'm like, sure, go ahead.
Good luck finding them.
Okay, that's a pretty narrow field.
Yeah.
And so let's see if they can help you out. But it's like not a very big field that's able to teach kids how to read and write that have Rett syndrome.
Yeah.
There are people that maybe work on communication. There might be some people that work on socialization, but they're really building the academics, and that's what school's about. It's not just, I don't want my kids just going there to get social skills.
Yeah.
I want them to be educated. So I always say, everybody's so dedicated to the cure. I get that. If I could wave a magic wand, I would do it. And if I couldn't wave a whole magic wand, I would at least get rid of seizures and the breathing problems, because those are so debilitating for the girls and boys. But the last thing I want is some kid getting cured and then going, why the heck didn't you teach me to read? Mm-hmm. Why don't I know how to write? Mm-hmm. Why don't I know what these words mean? Why don't I have any information about my world? You know what I'm saying? So it's this idea that if we only, and that's what I love about Girl Power to Cure. Do we raise money that we're under? Rett syndrome is under that charity. They are our host, so to speak. I co-founded with Girl Power to Cure. So now we have an agency that is dedicated to raising money for the cure, but also equally dedicated to educating the girls and boys where they are now. So to me, that's the marriage I want to see. I want to see people dedicated to the research and the science. We got Trofinetide that just is getting improved. It's a great thing. Yeah. I've seen a bunch of girls that have been on it. Some of them got a few words. Some of them had way better attending. Some of them had really horrible gastrointestinal problems. I mean, there's a real run the gamut. This is not a cure. This is not, my daughter's going to all of a sudden walk and she's going to speak to me in full sentences. In particular, she won't if she's never seen what a full sentence looks like. Uh-huh. So it's this kind of like two-edged deal going on here in terms of the cure and preparing for the cure. And that's what we're about. So I think that schools, at some point in time, got into a philosophy of if we do the best we can, then that's enough. And I think there are other schools that are very open-minded. And like I said, there's a difference between learn-it-alls and know-it-alls. The learn-it-alls say, come on in. And what happened that was significant in the last 3 years is when COVID shut everything down. I traveled like 60% of the time going out doing trainings. I hit March of 2020, and there was nothing. There weren't even airlines open. And I'm like, okay, all right. So what is going to happen to this job? And I started contacting schools I was going to and said, how about we do some remotes? They went, oh, thank goodness, because we don't know what to do with this kid remotely. So now, again, we don't know what to do with them when they're in school, Marla, and what to do with them remotely. Now what happened is, what I'm finding is instead of doing a 2-day brain dump at the beginning of the year and hope the teacher holds on to it for the whole year, I'm in the schools every other week or once a month or whatever they need once a week, just so that I'm carrying the thread throughout the year. It's just the same cost for the district and the parents. It might even be less because there's no travel, there's no housing, there's no, it's better. It works. I have kids that are in second grade in second grade reading groups. That's unheard of. So the model that we're using is slightly shifted also. Courtney still travels. I don't travel. I took that off my plate. It was exhausting. And if I want to do this longer, I have to make some trimming somewhere. So it's a good model though. And what it is supporting the schools. And once you can help a teacher, they then go back and say, wow, this really helped this kid. And then everybody in the school says, look at this kid. Look what she's doing. And boy, when she moves to the next level, we want this to come with. And so it's a matter of, I think, just changing people's philosophy about how asking for help is really not a bad thing. It doesn't mean you're not a good teacher. It actually means you're a good teacher.
Yeah, like you were saying, somebody who is not open to the idea of learning new ways to share information, or learning new ways how to connect with a kid who they're not going to learn in that typical lecture style, understanding that there are going to be kids coming through these classrooms that need a little different attention, being open to it and then doing it. And I think it helps create a culture of education versus I have a lot of friends who are teachers, and I think you're right, Susan. They enjoy routine. They have their, this is this quarter's box, and it is in this box, and I will do this. Yeah. And while I agree for the majority of kids that works, there's a few stragglers that are always.
I'm not so sure it works for them. I'll tell you why I left the classroom. Is I went in for my final end of year evaluation. And the principal said, you just have to kind of tone things down because parents are requesting you and it's making it very uncomfortable for me. I said, wait a minute, are you asking me to be less of a teacher?
Apparently.
And I said, well, then I want you to write that on my evaluation. She said, oh, I'm not putting that in writing. I said, well, I'll tell you what I will put in writing. I will teach to the end of the year and you will have my letter of resignation and I'm out. And that's when I went into private practice, because there's nobody in private practice that says, could you just tone this down and not be so darn creative and try so many things with my kid? Nobody says that to me, And I'm like, and I'm not saying that that's the way it is in all schools, but that was the place where I said, this isn't working for me anymore.
Yeah.
I have to do something different. And I think that there are a lot of teachers out there that would love to do something different. I hear from them all the time. They say, you know what? I got this IEP. I got these goals. I don't know how to do them. And if you weren't here teaching me this, I couldn't do it. I said, and if you didn't want help and wanted to learn, I couldn't do what I'm doing. I know what to do with learn-it-alls. I don't know what to do with people that don't have the heart for educating kids. That's beyond my pay grade. I turn that over to a higher power. But once you give me somebody who wants to learn, I don't care where their skills are. They can have horrible skills. If they want to learn, I can help them.
Most certainly.
I'm a teacher. That's what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
Is help people learn. Right.
Well, so if we can jump back over to RettU for a bit here. You talked about it being a 5-year dream, and I'll be honest, I'm incredibly impressed that it only took you 6 months to get it started. What was that conversation like with Girl Power to Cure? How does that partnership work? What's their kind of goal in hosting you guys, I guess, if that's the best way to describe it?
So I think at this point, we're pretty self-sufficient financially. we weren't originally. There was a lot of financial support coming our way. But actually during COVID, I think that we were knocking it out of the park where donations were down a little bit all around, I think, because of people not working and all of that. So we've kind of like become the thing that really sets Girl Power to Cure apart from maybe other groups that are fundraising for a cause, for this cause, is that we do have the educational component, a really strong educational component. And the board at Girl Power to Cure is very dedicated to us in terms of really wanting to see us thrive. So they are actually, they're really behind the idea of, making sure that we grow within our organization, that we go out and look for people that could be adjunct to what we're currently doing. So maybe find a speech therapist that would like to take on some clients that is not the speech therapist that's going to be asking WH questions and asking to define something. Yeah, find dog on your device, find green. That is not how we operate. That's not how we work at all. And so, again, trying to find people that are like-minded in terms of philosophy, and then we can give them the skill set. Even people who have never seen an AAC device can hop in and use it if they have the right attitude about communication. That's really the piece. It's not the device, it's not it. That's not the it. The it is the interaction piece, the relationship piece, the go with the flow piece when you're talking with an individual that uses AAC versus being so in a box that only a right answer can make it work. That's what raises the apraxia in Rett syndrome, and that's what makes it hard. And I think that there are a lot of what my parents say to me, parents of my clients say, I can tell in the first 10 minutes of a session with a new therapist if it's going to work or not by how they interact with my daughter or my son. So I just think that that stretch for us, we're now at that place where we have to do some growing and some thinking, but also I'm really pushing to get into some countries and do some translation of courses so that we've got it going more worldwide than we do now. But actually, we have a bigger footprint sometimes in some countries than even the U.S. I mean, we do have a big footprint in the U.S., but we have a bigger footprint some other places that are. And it's interesting. We have, is it Sweden? No. Sweden, Norway, it's Norway, has a fund available for parents to get therapy for their kids. And I have two families that have fought to have RettU be the provider and have won, which means that there are countries now that are saying, okay, this organization can help our students. We don't have that resource in our country. We can get that resource. So to me, that's spreading the word more. That's teaching more people that an individual with Rett syndrome shouldn't be looked at for what they can't do, but should be looked at for the possibilities of what they can do. And there are ways to unlock those possibilities.
Yeah. Now,
it's a good relationship. I feel very comfortable because I like to work with people. What you see is what you get. Do you know what I'm saying? If somebody has a problem, let's talk it out. Let's figure it out. It's an organization that is very transparent and very family oriented, wanting to support families. And to me, that really melds with where I am just philosophically, spiritually, and what I want to be doing with my life. So
that certainly makes things easier, I'm sure, in everyday interactions. And not only do you know the support that you will have, but you also know that if there's something they're not happy with, or there's something that you're not happy with, you have that line of communication open between the two groups where you can have a civil discussion and come out on the other side, having at least a compromise, if not a way forward that works really well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now I like dealing with grown-ups who act like grown-ups.
Only I could meet a few more of them. Oh God! Right. Well, okay. So I tell me if I'm wrong on this, but do you guys also work with individuals who don't have Rett syndrome but are using alternative forms of communication?
So on my caseload right now, I have 3 individuals out of the, I don't know, there's so many, many more, 3 that do not have Rett, but 2 of which are severe kids with cerebral palsy. One of which is very bright, one not as bright, but certainly working on writing with the young man. I have a couple of adults that I see with autism that I've had since they were little, and now they're big, they're really big. And then I have a student with spinal muscular atrophy, who, again, a lot of similarities there because she can't really move anything, but she can use eye aids like a whiz bang. But again, school wasn't quite sure what to do with her and how to educate her. So coming in and supporting the homebound teacher, because she can't leave her house, in how to teach her to read and to write. So it's few, but I only take kids who are complicated. I don't take anybody who can talk.
Yeah.
I don't have anybody with speech with their mouths, and I don't have anybody that can really use their hands effectively.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. Well, I had heard that you guys had worked with individuals beyond Rett syndrome, which I think goes back to what we were talking about before, that this work will go beyond just individuals with Rett, because it's demonstrating to many different communities that their family members, their siblings, their children, they can be successful, but what it takes is us looking past the disability at them as a person and understanding that we just have to figure out how to help them navigate the world around them, because it has not been built for them to be successful.
Yeah, my dad was an electronics engineer, just at a associate's level, and he was a jerry-rigger, if you know what I mean by jerry-rigger, right?
Yeah.
We had a washing machine that was like, I don't know, 100 years old. And when it got to the point where, it would break, and my dad was always following my dad. I can do a lot of things around the house because of him. And I'd go to the shop with him, and they'd say, Mr. Hanlon, they don't make a part for this anymore. And he would say, well, give me a J42 and I'll jerry-rig it, okay? And by the time this washing machine, in one cycle, would dance across the floor and unplug itself, and we'd have to go downstairs, push it against the wall from one thing to get. We'd have to do that 3 times per cycle. We kind of said to my dad, okay, Dad, we're done with the jerry-rigging. We're going to buy a new washer. That's all there's to it. We're done with this. And, I wasn't raised in a wealthy family at all, as you could tell by the washing machine story. But what my dad always did is he was always trying to figure out the how. My mom was she could organize a buffalo herd and had the energy of 3 people. I was blessed enough to get both of those attributes. And so the jerry-rigging to me is all about this figuring out the how. So you've reached a roadblock. Now, how do I get past the roadblock? Okay, now I'm going to reach another one. Eventually I will. How do I get past it? How do I meter things? How do I present things? How do I color code? Whatever it is I'm trying to do for a child who's got CVI and Rett syndrome, how do I make it so the visual makes more sense to them? So you just get this. I think it's a genetic piece I have from him, and I always go, thanks, Dan, so much. But I do think that's the it. It's the how. You were so right when you said that. It's not the what as much as the how in Rett. The what is what everybody else is learning. The how is, we got some ideas on the how.
Oh. Well, speaking of those ideas, we are excited to say that we will most certainly be in attendance at your communication camp that will be hosted at, hold on, what was the name of the camp?
The Center for Courageous Kids.
Yes.
There we go.
And courageous adults who are going to be there.
Most certainly.
September 15th through 17th. And if you go to our Rett University website or our Rett University Facebook or Instagram page, you can register there. And the most exciting thing for me, I'm a camper from way back. I mean, I camp with my kids, my husband. We've done some pretty rough backpacking and canoeing kind of junk. Now, at my age, I was really happy to hear this camp has air conditioning and cabins with actual beds. This is a good thing from here. I won't be walking for the rest of the week. But what we're doing, which is a first for this camp, is usually the camp takes the kids And it's a fully accessible camp. And the parents go in another room and they get some kind of training, or the doctors come and talk to them or whatever. We said, oh, no, 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 no. We are going to be with the kids, embedding the communication and the activities into what you're doing. So they're ziplining. We're going to have a soft tech board up there so they can talk about it for partner assisted scan, so they can tell us they're either scared or they don't want to do it or they can't wait or let's hurry up. We want to embed the communication into the things they're doing that every other kid gets a chance to do. The fact that it's free and all you have to do is get your transportation there is like a blessing, because we got a grant from GDIT. One of my clients is the president of that company or CEO or something. She's a big wig. And we got a grant. And so we've got grant money. And then the camp matched our grant money so that we're able to offer this to 30 parents or 33 parents, sets of families. But it's not just the kids with special needs. Their SIBs can come too. With the idea that how often does a SIB have to wait at a therapy session? Go, why do I have to be here? Now they're going to say, oh, look, there's an advantage to having this sister with Rett syndrome because I'm going ziplining for Pete's sake. So we're just trying to build a family activity where parents can embed the things that we talk about in an individual session into their everyday life. So they're eating at the cafeteria, and we're going to have ways for them to communicate. If they have a device, don't have a device, we'll be bringing our devices. We're going to just make it as fun as possible, but also as inclusive as possible. So it's not that they're just doing things, they're communicating about things, they're writing about things. They're just, they're being kids and doing what kids do, but having the way to have access for their communication also. So to me, it's like a perfect marriage, and they're excited. The camp is like, we've never done that before. Oh gosh, let's we're like, hey, listen, we've never done that before. Let me tell you, every day when I do my job, I'm like, I've never done this before, but we're going to give it a whirl. So I just think that it's going to be really exciting. And I've never been ziplining. So I'd like to try it. I'll need a board that goes, I'm scared to death. I will try it.
Maybe we can convince you, Susan, to go upside down on the zip line.
Ooh.
Oh, no.
What were you just saying? We try new things?
I've
never tried this before.
Upside down, not high balloon.
Oh, my God.
I had a really bad fall on the ice in January, and I'm like recovering from a concussion that would not be good to be out of.
All that blood rushing to your head.
No. That would not be good. But I think that the value of this camp is going to be the idea that parents can actually see what inclusion looks like. So for parents who have not gone down the inclusion road, and I'm not saying that it's for everybody. I will never forget this. I was doing a consult for the school district my kids went to, and they were bringing back like 5 kids with autism out of self-contained classrooms, out of the district into the school. So they asked me to come in. And I have this kiddo in kindergarten who was a screaming Mimi. And by the end of the year was doing great. In fact, the school that had him came in to observe, and they said, we're coming to see so-and-so. Can you point him out to us? I said, if you can't find him, I'm not telling you who he is. Find him, then we have done his job. His mother chose to have him go to a special education self-contained school the following year. And I said to her, and I mean, we're still good friends. I still see him. He's in the adult program where my Rett girls is in. My Rett women is in. And every day he says to me when I walk in, hello, Susan Norwell. I'm like, oh my gosh, here you are. She said to me, I know that he was doing well. But for me, every day I thought I was going to get a call saying he did something horrible and he wouldn't be allowed to be back. And I said, have we ever given you that impression? She said, no, this is not your issue. This is my issue. And I said, you know what? You have to do what's best for your family. I had to give that up. The kid was doing great. But I had to give because I understand I am not the family.
Yeah.
I understand what I can do for a family. I understand what I can do with a family. But I am not the family. And I think families have to do what's best for them. Some of them couldn't do the inclusion thing, couldn't do the fight. And that is not a bad reflection on them. That is just, that's them. That's how they are going to live their life, and they have that choice. So I always say districts need to have a continuum of services because inclusion isn't for everybody. I think we'll get to a place where it is more and more because maybe it won't be such a fight. But one of the things that I have the utmost respect for is parents. As a parent myself, I know that I have done many things wrong as a parent. I have done many things right as a parent. But I wouldn't want somebody sitting there judging all my wrong things and my right things to me, because I think everybody does the best they can with what they have. So that's the joy I have with working with families, is to relieve some of the guilt from them. There weren't devices. I didn't come on the scene until 35 years ago in Rett, 36 years ago in Rett. So, like I said, I think the camp is an opportunity for people to see what that looks like and see if they want to tread into it or not.
What's going to be great about this camp is that there's a lot of families who haven't had that opportunity to go camping, and anybody who has looked into it, any sort of camping at all, especially when you have somebody with complex needs, the stress that hangs over your head thinking about, all right, how am I going to take this person down a trail? Or how am I going to handle them if they get a bug bite? They may have an overreaction to something very innocuous that for everybody else is not a big deal. There's so much more that goes into play when you're thinking about something, let's be honest, as dangerous as going camping. And the great thing about this particular facility is that it is everything that I've seen, very self-contained. There is a lot of support that is going to be there. And so, and we kind of just glossed over it. It is free. It is free. That is absolutely incredible that a grant, essentially 2 grants, one that was a match. These organizations see the importance of providing the family, not the individuals with Rett, but the family, the opportunity to experience real inclusion, maybe even a sense of normalcy, just a little bit.
I was going to say that's probably what I'm the most excited about, is I get to take our family and spend time with other families that get it. That is my favorite part. I'm not going to have to explain my child to anyone. I am not going to have to be like, oh, well, she can't use her hands to do that. She's not going to give you a high five or whatnot. They all just understand.
Leave a basket. She won't be asked.
Yeah. She's not going to be asked to do things that, that we all know it's most likely not going to happen. Not that she doesn't want to. It's that physically it's just not going to happen. And I'm so excited for that part. So excited. That is legitimately my favorite part, when we're able to get together with other families. And I know I've had more opportunities than you have, Sam, to get together with other Rett families. But that is my favorite part, is that I don't stress. My stress level literally just shrinks when I'm with these other families.
Yeah, and I think that's something that families of neurotypical kids don't quite experience. I have a blended family. So my husband and I have one birth child, and then our 3 adopted kids are African American. And I will tell you that just walking in truck stops in Southern Illinois really taught me what racism was. I never felt anybody have racism against me because I'm white, so I never had, I had a woman come up to me in the grocery store when I was with my kids and said, "Is your husband dark?" I'm like, "What?" I know. So what you go through as a parent of special needs is people say things or are afraid to say things, or they would really like to reach out but don't know how to reach out, or they just are flummoxed by the whole thing. And now your stress level's up because you're trying to help them at the same time as you're like, oh my gosh, why does it have to be so hard? I mean, that's kind of how I felt. It's like, the lady that asked me the question, I said, no, he's blonde haired and blue eyed. And I just walked away because I was not in the mood to go through my,
Exactly. Do I educate or do I not educate?
at that moment, I just wasn't feeling it. I really wasn't. And so to me, it's always that thing that's hanging out there, that when you're with people that get it, you don't have to defend it. You don't have to explain it. You just can be it.
Exactly.
You can just be. Yeah, and that's what we want at the camp. We want people to just be and have a good time. And if something's not working, let us know. We'll figure it out. I'm also really thrilled that the kids, the siblings, I'm thrilled for the siblings, because that is something that our kids they very rarely see, is other families who have individuals with Rett syndrome. And they need a support system too. So absolutely.
So excited for this camp. September 15th to 17th.
Yep. The leaves will be changing. It'll be beautiful.
So excited.
Yeah.
Well, Susan, this has been such a pleasure to chat with you, to get to know you a little bit more, as well as hear more about the vision of RettU and the accomplishments that you guys have been able to make, as well as share this amazing, incredible, and really important opportunity that many families will have the opportunity to take advantage of. Where can people go to connect with Rett University and you and get more information?
So they can go to www.rettuniversity.org. RettUniversity.org is our website, but you can also go to Facebook and go to Rett University, search Rett University, go to Instagram, and you'll see postings about the camp there. If anybody just needs information, they can also email me. I'll give you my email. It's Susan Norwell, SusanNorwell @rett-u.com.
We are definitely going to leave all of that information down in the show notes of this episode, so you can go down there and review it and click it and copy and paste it and do all the things that you need to do to make sure you connect with Rett University, because they, honest to goodness, have been a godsend to our family. We are very grateful for everything that you have done.
Well, thank you.
It's been wonderful to see Zoe be able to start communicating more typically than we were able to before. And it's all through your efforts and Courtney's and the wonderful support that you have at Girl Power to Cure. So thank you. Thank you once again to Susan for taking a little bit of time to sit down and talk with us, chat about her experience working with individuals with Rett syndrome. It was such a delight to hear it from her and the background of Rett University. We had the great opportunity, what's it been, 2 years now, to sit down with Courtney.
Yep.
Who is also with RettU, and that's great. It's great to hear the wonderful things.
I mean, obviously, this is the first time we've really talked to Susan, but Courtney has become a really good friend, not just Zoe's teacher.
Yeah. And I think that's what makes this community really great, is because it seems like it's more friendly.
It is.
With the professionals than it is just a professional connection.
Yep.
Well, it is now time for Can't Leave It.
Can't leave it.
Sarah, what is your Can't Leave It?
I can't leave it is that Sam and I are building a house, you guys.
We got all the Legos from Walmart. And we've been going to town on it for a while.
Yep.
We won't fit in it.
No.
But maybe some of the kids' toys could.
This is lies.
Yes. Yes.
Lies. No, we're building a house. And we decided that it was time. Mostly because of Zoe and her mobility, because right now we're in a townhome, and it's getting harder because she's getting bigger, and the bedrooms are all upstairs, so she has to be carried, and it's just getting harder. So it is time for us to live in a single level house where she will be able to get from room to room with minimal assistance. So
Yep.
we are hoping to be moving this summer to our new house.
Fingers crossed that that's the case. Obviously, we're not going to share all the specifics about the way our home is being built right now because we don't even know if we're going to like it on some of the decisions that we made. We did have an opportunity to sit down with them and kind of share our vision and some of our family needs. And they were able to meet some of those, and we're still working with them on some of the other things. And like I said, maybe in the end, we regret everything.
Maybe.
So,
This is the first time for us, so
yeah, exactly.
new adventure.
So as, we get settled in the place, we'll kind of take a account of how we like it and what we don't like about some of those specific things. And we will certainly be sharing more. But I think what was most exciting for us is that, I never envisioned us building a home.
I thought we would be building a home, but I thought it would be different.
Okay, yeah.
The process would be different.
That is true.
I'm good with the process. Like, I'm good with it, the way that we're doing it.
Yeah.
I thought it would be different, though, when we did it, but that's okay.
But we it just kind of was perfect for us,
All the circumstances lined up right for us.
Yeah, where, I don't think of the circumstances with the time of year that we approached the builder about it. There were tons of incentives because it was end of year.
Yeah.
And they were trying to meet goals.
Yeah. So they were willing to work with us.
Yeah, we were able to take them to the cleaners on quite a few things, which is really nice.
Yep.
And save a lot of money. So anyways, it's just kind of surreal, and it's really exciting, and we're excited about it, and we will see if we are still excited about it when we actually move in.
Exactly. So Sam, what is your can't leave it?
My can't leave it is I have a complaint. I have to make.
Against who?
Against IKEA.
Oh, okay. I was a little bit worried there for a second.
Yeah, no. I'm not airing out too much dirty laundry on this podcast. A little bit here and there.
I never know.
But this one, I think all of us can get behind it.
Okay, what is this?
As a human race. This is an absolute atrocity.
Okay.
This is an affront.
What is it?
To morality.
What is it?
IKEA now is selling Pepsi products in their cafe.
Oh.
At least in the cafe at our IKEA in Colorado. You guys, for reals, I showed up there, was like, I'm ready for some Swedish meatballs. I'm ready for some chocolate mousse cake. I'm ready for my pear soda. Do you know what they had? They had Pepsi. Now, I don't mind Pepsi. I have a problem with Pepsi. It's not even that, like, I enjoy it. Sometimes I specifically choose Pepsi products. But IKEA has made an agreement with us as humans. They made an agreement when they said, we will sell you our delicious meatballs. Along with our delicious meatballs, we will give you weird sodas.
My favorite is the lingonberry.
Mm-hmm.
Is that? I don't know if I'm saying that right.
Well, nobody's saying it right anymore because it doesn't exist. It's gone.
Do they still sell it though in the little market?
Don't know, and I don't care because it's not coming out of the fountain dispenser.
Oh, well, okay. If you're going to have a gripe about IKEA, I want to talk to you about that.
What?
Because you brought home Swedish meatballs
Yes.
and sauce,
Yes.
but you didn't bring home any of the
Yes, the berries. Berries. Yes.
jam.
Do you know why I didn't?
I don't know why.
Because I didn't get my pear soda. I was so distraught.
You're punishing me because you didn't get pear soda.
No, I was so devastated. I walked out of IKEA ready to cry.
That's sad.
It was almost worse than diagnosis day.
Oh,
It was
that
so-
is inappropriate. Inappropriate.
Look, Okay, I may have taken it a bit too far, but for reals, what are they thinking?
I don't know what they're thinking. That I agree that it is infuriating.
Yes. So here's what I want you to do. This is a call to action
Oh, geez.
to the tens of our listeners.
Oh, jeez.
We're not even at hundreds, people. Tens of listeners. You need to go to your local IKEA. I need reports. I need reports from around the country. Around the world, has IKEA defiled its cafe with Pepsi products in all locations?
Or is it just ours?
Yes, because if it's just ours, I think I'll survive. But if they have made a shift worldwide, they're messing with the wrong guy. I just want my pear soda.
A little bit. I want to see what you would do.
I'll make a t-shirt.
Oh, okay.
I'll make posters. And I will stand in line at the cafe to get my Swedish meatballs and protest the soda.
Wow.
When they ask, do you want a fountain drink? I will point at my shirt that says, bring back the crazy sodas. And then I will walk away after paying.
I was going to say, are you going to pay for this first or? Okay.
I will pay for it.
Are you going to pay for a fountain drink?
No.
Okay.
No.
I'm just.
Okay, now, obviously.
You need a drink to have with your Swedish meatballs.
Well, but that's just it. Like, honest to goodness. I know I've been, like, just being silly up to this point.
Yeah.
I was legitimately disappointed, though.
Oh, I believe it. Because if I had been there with you, I would have been extremely disappointed as well.
Well, and I think what made it even worse is that they had all of these options. Great. Thank you for providing all of these options. But the majority of them were broken.
Oh, that is disappointing.
Yeah. They had ginger ale there. Guess what? It was broken.
Oh,
They had brisk iced tea there. It was broken.
that's sad.
They had Diet Pepsi there. It was broken.
You didn't tell me this part.
Uh-huh.
Okay, this makes
Because
me
I was incredibly, like, devastated that I couldn't have my pear soda. I seriously was so looking forward to it because it makes me feel like I'm trying to do something healthier than a cola.
That's fair.
Even though it's probably just as bad. The amount of sugar and sodium that's in it, it's going to be just as terrible as everybody else. But yeah, all of those were broken. So the only thing that was left was pink lemonade and regular Pepsi. That was it. Like they have 7. They have 7 options there.
I'm sorry.
Where 2 of them were taken up by pink lemonade. What? There wasn't even Mountain Dew.
Poor soul.
I know.
Poor soul.
With a recent change that Spotify has made to Anchor, which we host the podcast through, we can actually have question and answers through the podcast. So I am going to leave a question and answer or a poll. And for those of you listening on Spotify, I want to know, has IKEA defiled its cafe in your local IKEA? Has it defiled itself? I want to know.
And with that, thank you so much for joining us for this episode. Be sure to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts so that you are notified when we publish episodes, which is every other Monday morning.
And please leave us a rating on iTunes.
Leave us a message or a question on the Anchor app, and you could become part of the show.
Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Pretty Happy Pod, where we share episode clips, news and updates, and photos of our adorable daughter.
If you would like to be interviewed on the show, reach out to us on any of our social media accounts, or you can send us an email at prettyhappypod@gmail.com. For more information about Rett syndrome, visit our website,